Topsmead State Forest, the former estate of Miss Edith Morton Chase, today covers almost 600 acres of Connecticut farmland and woods capped by a landscaped Tudor Revival summer cottage. This is a story about a Connecticut estate, a woman ahead of her time, and her love of the land. In this film, you will meet Miss Edith, as she was often called, and learn about her life as an independent woman and the part she played in creating the Topsmead that you see today.
On April 3, 1891, Edith Morton Chase was born in Waterbury, Connecticut, to Henry Sabin and Alice Morton Chase. At that time, her grandfather, Augustus Sabin Chase, was the head of a number of companies that would evolve into one of the top copper and brass companies in the United States. Augustus, the patriarch of the Waterbury Chases, was the creator of the fortune that would years later allow Miss Chase to own and expand the property that would eventually become Topsmead State Forest. Her father, Henry Sabin Chase, became the first president of the Chase Companies, manufacturers of brass and copper products, during an era when Waterbury was the brass capital of the world. The Henry Chase family lived at 42 Church Street in Waterbury. Edith grew up there with her three sisters, Mildred, Catherine, and Anne, and her younger brother, Rodney. For her high school years, she went off to the Farmington School, now known as Miss Porter's. After graduating in 1910, she made an extended tour of Europe, as was common for wealthy, well-educated people in those days. Accompanying her were her Church Street neighbors, Lucy and Mary Burrell, who were chosen by her father to act as chaperones for the 19-year-old Edith. This tour created a deep friendship between Miss Edith, Mary, and Lucy that would turn into a lifelong companionship.
She was one who knew her place as sort of an aristocrat of the Waterbury Society, but someone who also had a common touch.
She was a doer. During World War II, she took a first aid and motor repair course to help in the war effort by being ready if additional ambulance drivers were needed on the home front. She never hesitated to step up when something needed doing, and she was quite comfortable in a man's world.
When she visited her sister, Catherine, at Sutton Place in New York City, she was surprised to find that she couldn't watch her soaps, and she was very fond of soaps. She also founded the World Series. And so she said, why don't you have good television reception here? And she said, well, there are too many buildings. This was early on. And she said, well, I'm going to get a hold of General Sarnoff at Radio RCA, I think it was, and find out what's going on. And she did. She sent a letter, and the following week, according to Catherine, telling the story, a crew showed up, and they were able to bounce these television reception or whatever off of various buildings so that her sister ended up with fine reception for any time that she'd come down to watch those soaps. She just, took things in hand whenever they had to be taken in hand.
Growing up, Edith and her father preferred spending summers in the Litchfield Hills at their house on Litchfield's North Street. The rest of the family preferred to escape Waterbury's heat at their cottage in Madison on the Connecticut shoreline. In 1917, her father gave Miss Edith 17 acres on which she had a simple rustic cabin built.
And that cabin was something that she grew very fond of. So fond of that after visiting the Cotswolds and deciding that she wanted to have a Tudor mansion, she wanted that mansion to have the cabin attached to it.
Miss Chase hired Richard Henry Dana, Jr., the same architect who had designed her father's house on North Street in Litchfield, to build her the Tudor mansion she desired. Dana oversaw the design and year-and-a-half construction of the house that you see today.
Richard Henry Dana Jr. told her, you can't have wood shingles and this rough shack attached to this half-timbered house with slate roof. And up until the last minute, she fought that and then finally yielded. We do have a blueprint that shows the cabin attached, and 3 months later, the adjustment that he was able to make. And sitting in this living room reminds me that he made incredible adjustments to make this work for her. He did keep the fireplace and stonework that she had in the original cabin, but then was able to build this bay so that the couch that's located over here fits in and allows for a spacious room. He did put in these trestles, which are called queen post construction. And in order to hold up a roof, you can have a queen post or a king post. And what's more appropriate in a house where women are living? King post or queen post? Right, and he did it right, that he has these queen post construction, looking very sturdy and giving a lot of airiness to this summer home so that the hot air would rise and this home would be a little bit cooler. This room would be very nice and cool over here on the northwest corner.
Dana said that he would build according to the English practice of what was called grounding a house. The term refers to designing the structure to blend in with and almost become part of the landscape. Dana's design highlighted the horizontality of the house and then indicated that it be surrounded with plantings that would reach up to the low roof levels, thus visually anchoring or grounding the house to the earth. Miss Chase's travels in the Cotswolds of England guided her interior design choices as well.
Being an Anglophile, she really wanted to make sure that this was furnished with English country antiques or items that were from the American arts and crafts movement, so that you'll find basketry, you'll find wood prints honoring the pre-industrial times here.
For a person of means, Miss Chase's summer home was simple and unpretentious. You won't find gilt china, marble floors, or Persian rugs. You will see simple Wedgwood dishes in a warm yellow cane pattern. The floors in the foyer, hallways, and dining room are handmade, unadorned Moravian tiles that emit a soft, polished glow. Throughout the house were bright American-crafted hooked rugs. She furnished her home with English country pieces, such as a large settle, gate-leg tables, and benches, as well as stools for her desk and vanity. A Renaissance staircase rises to the bedrooms on the second floor.
If you go into the bedrooms, you're going to find that there are coverlets. And on the coverlets, there is the Tree of Life. And after being here for a while, I caught on to this Tree of Life icon, because out on the veranda, you'll see a sculptured Tree of Life that holds the English ivy during the summers. And also there's a tray in the flower cutting room that has the Tree of Life icon. So she has that on the coverlets. And the coverlets are on English beds, which are a little bit lower and a little bit more narrow than the ones that we have. And I do think that she felt that horsehair mattresses were better for your posture. She slept on one, and if you were coming to visit her, you slept on one too. And this was a time in the 70s when there were Sealy Posturepedic mattresses, but she felt as though these were better for you, and she was going to impose them on you whether you liked it or not.
Borrowing the English word mead for meadow and combining it with top for its location on the highest hill in Litchfield, Miss Edith called her beloved place of serenity and seclusion Topsmead.
The ladies came up here from April until November. They were always back to do their civic duty and vote in any election that there was. They'd be back in Waterbury. And what they did was they had a routine that was followed pretty carefully every day. Miss Chase enjoyed staying up late, and she would get up late, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Every day she enjoyed a couple of muffins and a glass of milk, and she would take her little constitution, which would go out to the four corners, and then walk back. Mary and Lucy had their own little habits of dining in the dining room usually.
An equestrian when younger, Miss Edith enjoyed riding about the property on horseback, or, later on, driving in the carriage with the other ladies. Throughout the seasons, they loved simply walking the property, observing nature, and visiting the farm animals. Occasionally, the ladies would entertain relatives and friends on the veranda, or they might venture out to the stone barbecue grill located south of the cottage, where they would picnic. Miss Edith would sometimes do the cooking herself. Although the house had both a radio and TV, the ladies preferred spending time in the living room reading some of the 2,000 books on the shelves. They also enjoyed playing backgammon, rummy, and canasta. Miss Chase and the Burrell sisters, Lucy and Mary, lived together in a comfortable harmony at Topsmead.
She was a wonderful companion to Mary and Lucy Burrell, for those three got along famously. As I've heard from so many people, those three understood what we call giving each other space and respecting that space.
The ladies always had at least one dog in their life. Scotties, collies, and poodles were favorite breeds. Their last dog was Jacques, a black miniature poodle who dearly loved to accompany them on automobile rides.
They loved their dogs. Miss Chase had little seats built for the convertible and the formal car that she would sit, but we placed right next to her, and Jacques would sit upon these little seats.
The Topsmead property was more than just a residence, though. It grew to be a productive working farm. Miss Chase took pride in decision-making for the farm, even on occasion taking over a farm project.
Well, Miss Edith bought the farm, I think it was in 1927, from George Buell. Prior to that, there was just Topsmead and Underhill and a few other fields. And at that time, I believe all that was located at the farm itself was the farmhouse, which is still there. There was another cottage right across the road. There was the barns, which we used to call the horse barn and the cow barn. But I know the barns were in need of repair, and Miss Chase hired contractors to fix them up. And I even know that she made notes that her and Miss Mary would whitewash the cow barn.
Over the years, Miss Chase had Percheron draft horses and riding horses, Jersey dairy cows, highly regarded for the butter fat in their milk, Black Angus steers, chickens, turkeys, Yorkshire pigs, and South Down and Suffolk sheep. The farm complex was occupied by the farm manager and his family, the maids, often Irish immigrants, and the chauffeur, John Orintas, and his family. Norma Stairs, wife of the last farm manager, said they had their own little United Nations down there. The chauffeur's son, Bob Orintas, described what it was like being at Topsmead as a boy.
And coming up here was a most marvelous sense of freedom, and we did almost anything we wanted. I mean, go out playing in the fields, walking the stone walls, which we were told not to do, climbing the haystacks, which we were told not to do, but the freedom of the wandering through the woods.
Located in the field north of the main house, in an area the ladies referred to as Underhill, was a huge garden, 100 by 200 feet, that supplied the house and staff with a variety of fresh fruit and produce.
Up here in the 40s and so, everything was canned. They would can the tomatoes, the beans, the corn. All this was harvested and cooked or blanched up here at the main house by the cook, the maid, Miss Edith, and Miss Lucy also. They would all help. A lot of canning. Down at Underhill was a little apple orchard. Across from the house here on what we now call Chase Road, I would say was a 15-acre apple orchard, not completely occupied by apples because there's a steep bank on the end of it, but I think there are over 300 apple trees there. Then come September or so, everybody would be picking apples. They had these huge triangular shaped ladders, apple bags. They go up in the trees and pick. And during the week, and I know several times on Saturday, I still remember the 41 station wagon, Dad and I would go around to places in Torrington and Thomaston and Litchfield and Waterbury, bringing the apples to be sold at farm stands or at local grocery stores. So she would give away apples to all her sisters and brothers and friends who would come up here also. So absolutely nothing went to waste.
After purchasing the Buell farm, Miss Chase continued purchasing pieces of property, eventually growing her farm and estate to over 500 acres.
She would always make sure that she had been fair with the people from whom she bought that property. And often, according to one of the farm managers, he was sent back to talk to the landowner to make sure that she had been fair with that person.
According to a nephew, about 6 months before her death, Miss Chase took an assessment of her relatives' situations. Then she made a decision that set the path for her legacy and what would become one of the most beautiful and peaceful state forests in Connecticut.
She had decided that she wanted to leave this to the state of Connecticut, as she put it, to the people of Connecticut. And so she arranged this with her sister-in-law, Florence, whom she called Flossie.
In a letter, Miss Chase wrote,
"Flossie, dear, this is a horrid job I am asking of you, but there is no one else I would like to have act for me in this way. So, I can only say thank you for this and so much else over the years. I think we shall talk this over, and it will probably be rewritten several times. But life goes often at a swift pace, and as my will refers to a letter given to you, I thought I'd better have a go at it."
Florence persevered in carrying out Miss Chase's stipulations for how the state of Connecticut was to treat this gem.
If people were going to enjoy it, they were going to enjoy it the way she enjoyed it. And that meant a small parking lot. That meant no changes around this property. That meant very few signs, if any, even on the roads, so that people who came here were ones who were lucky enough to find it and then share it with friends that they knew would be like-minded. And she went ahead and did that. But I do think that she saw this as her artistic and cultural contribution to the world. I mean, I do think that in the end, she knew that she wanted to leave this to the people of Connecticut.
As a Connecticut state forest and a site on the National Register of Historic Places, now Topsmead is available for all of us to enjoy. It still offers us today the same tranquility, renewal, and connection with nature that Miss Chase so cherished.